Hi, I'm Taylor McLean, and this is Taylor Your Reality. Hey guys, welcome back. First of all, full disclosure, I definitely do have some kind of a sinus infection. It's springtime, March 1st, when I'm recording this episode, so the pollen is out, and it definitely got me. Also, this week's episode is a little heavier than I thought I would be doing this early on, because this podcast is not about geopolitics. I'm not here to analyze foreign policy. However, I do want this podcast to reflect the reality that I'm living in. So, time to time, we're going to touch on politics. I woke up to headlines about violence involving Iran and the United States, and it definitely upset me. I don't have the answers, and I have a lot of opinions, but I realized that I feel like I'm just stuck between two truths. On the one hand, the world can be absolutely devastating, and the things that we are living through, they're shocking and infuriating. And it's so hard sometimes for me to just go about my life, go about my day, knowing that people were murdered today and that my tax dollars were involved. Yeah. So I was holding those two realities at the same time. My confusion, my anger, my sadness, while also being at peace. Because I had an actually pretty decent day. I'm 32 years old, and sometimes I think about how much history has unfolded in real time during my life. The very first major life-changing historical event that I personally can remember was 9/11. 9/11 happened. I was in the second grade, I believe. I was getting ready for school. I was staying the night at my mom's house, and I had taken a bath or a shower or something, and I just remember I was in the living room standing in front of the TV, and it was on the news. The second tower was falling, and I just remember in my little 7-year-old brain, I thought it was an action movie. I didn't think it was actually real television, and so I just thought it was like normal TV, and my sister's grandpa was standing behind me, and he was in shock. He was on his feet. He couldn't even sit down to watch the news, and his eyes were huge, and he was just shocked. And I just remember him saying, like, the world will never be the same. I remember in 2008 when the stock markets crashed, or the housing markets crashed. I don't know. I was going into high school, and I was young. I was confused, but I remember my stepmom lost her job. She had been working. Maybe I was, yeah, yeah, it was about that time. She had lost her job. A lot of the kids at school, their parents financially weren't doing very well. And I just remember there being a lot of stress with adults on how they were going to be able to make ends meet. My family definitely was financially impacted by that, and it absolutely affected my quality of life when I was in high school. I remember Sandy Hook. I remember being at home, and I can't remember if it was on the TV or if it was on the computer, but I remember just kind of scrolling across it and being totally shocked, right? Like that, I remember Sandy Hook being like the first school shooting in my time that actually shocked me and made me like I'm numb to it now. I'm used to it now. It doesn't surprise me anymore. Once in a while, there'll be a detail where I'm like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening, but for the most part, I can believe it's happening. And Sandy Hook was that for me, right? When you see I remember seeing the kids in the parking lot, the parents showing up at the school devastated. Like, we didn't realize at that time that this was going to I mean, it was becoming a problem, but it really shocked us. And then there was the Pulse nightclub shooting. Do you remember that? think it happened somewhere in the South, Florida, I want to say. It was a gay nightclub got shot up, and I I was working at Amazon at the time. I remember coming out to the break room and sitting down to have a snack and looking at the TVs around me and seeing the news and like just feeling devastated and how surreal it felt that I had just been driving around on the forklift, moving pallets around, and then I come sit down and that was what had been happening, you know? Just that crazy shock between like trauma and then the ordinary of my day-to-day life. The Las Vegas shooting, that's another one that really stands out to me because I remember this had to be, I think it was October 2017, because I remember watching the story unfold on TV, seeing all these people at the concert, and I think it was like a country music concert, and this guy from his hotel room had, with like a sniper, had just taken a bunch of people out at the concert. And maybe a week later, me and my friend had gone down to Universal Studios in California, and we went with a couple that was her friends. It was in October, so it would have been around the time of Fright Night. And I just remember there being so many people there and feeling so packed in, you know. And I kept looking at the rooftops when we were walking through the streets because I was so hyper aware that somebody could just be on a rooftop and attack you, you know. The COVID-19 pandemic, 2020. I remember I was still working at Amazon. I remember being on the dock, the pallet dock, and our manager walking out and grabbing a microphone and just being like, "Hey everybody, you know, we just found out that this COVID-19 virus is very serious. So if you feel sick at all, you're allowed to leave. No questions asked. You know, if you don't feel good, go ahead and go home. We have unlimited time off if you need it." And just how freaked out she looked, right? And then after that, school goes online because I was in college. I was living alone, can't go visit my family. And then the war escalating in Ukraine, you know, that's all over the news. At the time, I was working for Modesto Junior College, and one of my coworkers actually is from Ukraine. Her and her husband, they're immigrants, and she and I were chit-chatting, and I had complained to her about how expensive gas was, and she told me that her family back home in Ukraine couldn't even afford gas, and how privileged, you know, we are that we actually can't afford it. And she wasn't correcting me, she wasn't scolding me. It was very casual, very comfortable, you know, like she was like contrasting, you know, what I had said with a different reality. In that moment, it was so real for me, you know? It was so real. Like, you're right. You're right. How different, you know, life is for us compared to people that you personally know, that she personally knew. And then Gaza, you know. I Gosh, so many nights I've laid in bed in the last 2 years looking at footage of children in Gaza and just bawling my eyes out. Like, oh my God, like the level of sadness, right? Of things that it's worse than any ASPCA commercial with like the sad dog music, like because that had been like the most devastating thing I'd ever seen like online. And then now we're living in a day and age where it's like this is live, this is happening right now. This is not for entertainment, this is not to capture, this is footage of something very, very real, you know, it's really happening. And the children, the babies, like we see their faces, we've listened to them, heard their side of the story. Some of them spoke English, you know, unavoidably true and tragic. Now, take a moment and just, I've spouted a lot of information, and you guys were there too. You lived through it as well. And, you know, this has been our life. This has been our life. It has been something that we've been watching narrated to us throughout our lives. Some of you maybe have lived through it, you know, or you know people, you've lost people that have lived through it. Maybe you were at New York in 9/11, or like my coworker, maybe you were, or my old coworker, maybe you're from Ukraine. Like, the world is unequal. This is just a fact. The world is unequal. We don't all get the same reality. We don't all get the same starting line. Some of us are just born into instability. Some of us are born into war. Some of us are born orphans. Some of us have parents who adore them, and don't have to worry about not having food. Like, it's not all equal. After millennia of war and colonization and exploitation, these man made systems have very much, like, mankind has shaped the world. This is this is a fact. But on the other hand, it's not all bad. Right? Like, it's not all bad. Life is more than just this doom and gloom. So this morning, I did see the news about what happened in Iran, and also I sat on my couch. I watched the newest season of Bridgerton. My husband made some pancakes for us. He makes the best pancakes. I love them. Anytime he asks me what I want for breakfast, lately I've just been on a big pancake kick. And he loves making me breakfast on the weekends. That's kind of like our thing. Like, I go and watch TV. He's a Cancer. It's part of his love language. No, he just loves to cook, and I like to eat, so it works out. He watched the episode with me, and then we went out and took a walk. We drove to Olympia and stopped at the Capitol building. I love that area. There's this beautiful pond that reflects the building, and there's always people out there walking their dogs. Me and my husband love dog watching. We love dogs. We want a dog. Uh, and I don't know, I'm just comfortable with him. We can walk in silence and I can just be present. I love it. It was sunny out. It hasn't been sunny. We're right at the beginning of March, so the seasons are shifting, and oh, it's going to rain a lot this week, but there's still going to be some sun out, and I live for it. I'm a California native. I love the sun. That's one of the hardest parts about living in Washington. I actually really miss the sun. But the trees were beautiful. The mountain was out. Rainier, she was looking fabulous, and we enjoyed our walk. And then I came home and I took a really nice hot bath, and I thought out what I wanted to talk about in tonight's podcast episode. So, so that was my day. This is my reality, and somewhere out there somebody else's reality is in rubble. Now, I wasn't born into luxury, okay? I'm not middle class by any means. I was born to teen parents. One of my parents grew up in foster care, the other one grew up in a trailer park. It was a nice trailer park, don't get me wrong, a mobile home park, if you will. She had a double wide, but like, I was not I've been I grew up in poverty, we just did. I have known instability. I know what it's like to struggle. Um, I've walked into rooms that I didn't think I belonged in, but I fought like hell to overcome that discomfort, and I've been having to prove to myself, that I am worth more, and that, I've had opportunities. There wasn't a straight path for me. I am the first woman in my family that has gotten a bachelor's degree, at least in my immediate family. And, I've overcome, I didn't have a teen baby. That teen pregnancy runs in my family. I have not had kids. I'm married. I've done things differently. And there wasn't a path or a set handbook of how to do that or what exactly that looks like. I've had guidance, I've had mentors kind of tell me a piece here, a piece there, some wisdom here, wisdom there, but I've kind of had to piece it all for myself. I've had to take all these different opportunities that I've had and just do my best with them, and it has been clumsy as hell, but um, I'm getting by somehow. Not everybody gets opportunities. Not everybody has that. And some people have it taken away from them in an instant. For a long time, especially the years that I was an atheist, the inequality in the world made God, the concept of God, difficult for me to understand. But I've come to know my creator. I've come to develop a relationship with the Most High. And through my understanding, I have gotten this clarity that the inequality in the world is not because God doesn't exist. It is proof that the systems that we live in are broken. And that's not to say that, bad things still wouldn't happen, even if humans created these perfect systems, right? We're flawed. Humans are flawed. And the world can be a dangerous place. There can be natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes and all kinds of other things. But the systems that we live in, they're very flawed and broken. I think we all recognize that. That's why there's so much division and fighting and chaos in the world, right? Because we can't all agree on what it is that we want. Now, a few years ago, I kind of just felt, I'd say probably around 2023, I started to feel this call to do something to help people. Because before that, I had been doing tarot card readings. I got into tarot around 2021 and it became a hobby for me. And then I kind of, 2022, had this coming to Jesus moment. I'll talk about this stuff later. Um, Going into 2023, after doing tarot readings and just doing these like live Zoom readings, which honestly they ended up being more like coaching sessions. We used the tarot cards, but I didn't really need the tarot cards to coach people. I was pretty just, it turns out I'm naturally good at it. And you talk to enough people and you start to really learn what it is that people want and what it is that they need and gives you this awareness. I started gaining awareness into what it is that people from different backgrounds and, um, you know, people from different demographics, what it is that they really need. And it just started developing this fight inside of me where I wanted to fight back because I realized the system wasn't just rigged against me, it's rigged against everybody. Like, there's all these made up rules, and we've all been categorized and thrown into these different boxes. And it's all like a lot of it's just BS. I wanted to do something to address real pain in the world. And when I got an opportunity to do that, I just didn't really think too much about it. I jumped on it. So, 2024, I left California, came up to Washington to do nonprofit work, helped. It was brand new ministry, and I really threw myself into it. I dedicated everything to it. I mean, I got rid of all my stuff, and me and my husband, we got married and we just went because that feeling of, I'm here trying to live my normal life, but so much suffering and pain in the world, and I've seen it my whole life, and I carried that grief my whole life of, I'm struggling, I have it hard, but people out there have it so much worse. They tell you that when you're poor. Your life is hard, but that person's life is even harder, so you should appreciate that you don't have it as bad as that guy. uh, and so I definitely think internalized that, and it just got to this breaking point where I was like, God, you're right. They have it so much worse than me. I need to do something about that. And I sacrificed myself, man. I totally sacrificed myself every night, every day, wiping tears, cooking meals, driving people, holding hands, praying over them. It wasn't even just the ministry directly, but the whole community itself. I mean, I was really stepping into a side of myself that had been there, and I had all this backlog. Like, I just had such a capacity to love and to give and to show up and be there for people. But um I'm very authentic. I wasn't being fake, but God, it exhausted me. So I reached a point of full-blown burnout and I had to step away. And I'm still working in nonprofit, but very different. I'm not doing ministry anymore. I still care about people, but it's been almost a year, 11 months, and I'm changing. I feel very different than who I was a year ago. I'm looking for a way to still be me, but in a way that's more sustainable. And I still care, but I'm tired. I have learned the extremely hard way, like the hardest way, that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Nobody taught me how to replenish myself. Nobody, told me. We don't live in that kind of a world, right? We live in this hustle culture. We live in this grind world where, you need to just go, 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 get it done. And it's just not realistic. Like I was taught how to fight, how to endure, and how to survive. I never learned how to rest. So this year I am really trying to fix that. I want to get to know who I am, after everything that I've been through and overcame in my life, because when I was growing up, I was constantly fantasizing about who I wanted to be when I got older, but it hasn't been until now that I've really stopped and looked around and thought, huh, I am finally older. Like, is this who I dreamed that I would be when I grew up? And in many ways, yes. There's a lot of things about my life that I'm proud of, that I think reflect me, but in a lot of ways, I don't think I've fully arrived. And so I think if I could encourage you, my listener, one thing this next week, because last week we talked about people pleasing, which might have been a rough episode if if you're a chronic people pleaser. This week, and I'm going to do this myself and encourage you, but I think we need to start trusting ourselves more that healing is not selfish. It's not selfish to step away and say, you know what? I've had 1 year away from serving people, and I think I need more time before I can do it in that capacity again. And in the background, I'm still helping people. Like I said, I do work in nonprofit. I'm helping people at my job. I show up for my husband. I'm still showing up for my friends. I open the door for people, and I'm still showing up in a nice way, but I just feel like I don't have the capacity. Like the world has such a huge demand for, like, there's all these people out there crying out for someone to save them. And I think, this last year just made me realize I am not Jesus. Like I am not God. I do believe that God can work through me. I do believe that I can be a vessel to do God's will at times. I think I can do good, but maybe I've been looking at this the whole wrong way. Maybe just showing up to work and having a good attitude can be enough. Maybe I don't have to give 150% all the time to be doing enough, because like I've learned that I also matter. Right now, the person that I need to save is myself, because I never want to be as exhausted and tired as I was last year. I never want to go through that. Burnout is terrible for you. I mean, I was losing clumps of my hair. It took me probably 9 months to sleep and actually feel rested the next day. It can destroy you, and we are living in a world that is designed to burn you out, to make you exhausted and tired, and that thrives on your attention, that thrives on your energy. We live in a very unequal world, and we have to do our due diligence to protect ourselves, because destroying ourselves in response to the inequality out there will not fix it. You can't help other people when you yourself need the help. It's like a lifeguard. If there's somebody in a pool drowning and the lifeguard just jumps in and starts drowning too, nobody's going to get saved. Really, what he needs to do is throw that raft out there and pull the guy in, right? Sometimes that's us. Sometimes we're the person in the pool drowning, and sometimes we're the lifeguard. If you woke up safe today, if you have access to clean water, you have access to food and shelter, if somebody loves you, if you had a nice quiet moment, if you laughed and broke bread with someone that you care about, if you have a beautiful baby in your life, or a puppy, or a hobby, or just a wife with a great ass, whatever it is that makes you feel super happy and proud to be alive, that is not something to be ashamed of. That, my friends, is something to store, okay? And it's okay to be a steward. It's okay to replenish yourself. Sometimes we need to be replenishing ourselves because replenishment is preparation. If you're not actively in the storm right now, then it's okay to just step back and rest and get ready for the next one. Resting is not quitting. Resting is refuel. And that's what I'm doing right now in my life. I'm just resting. And I'm so grateful that I'm in the Pacific Northwest because like I said, I'm from California and it's so sunny all the time. Yes, we do have, I used to get seasonal affective disorder back in California for the 3 months of semi-gray weather that we had. Here in Washington, it's like half the year. But I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the winter up here because it has really helped me to understand the concept of wintering, of resting. When it's gray outside and rainy, you don't want to go anywhere. You really do want to be home and relax. And so, the world is so heavy. And if you're like me and you've been chronically online your whole life, you've seen a lot of things. Actually, you don't even have to be on the internet. I mean, the Fox News grandparents, they're always watching the news, the TV. They're seeing everything going on. People that are just watching the news, consuming all the time. I mean, I guess even newspapers, right? Like, we could really think far back. If there's been a crisis in the world, there's been somebody reporting it. Um, there's always been somebody at any point in history going through something crazy. And one day maybe it'll be our turn. One day we'll be the one going through it. Hopefully not, but it's a possibility. It's always a possibility. And I just am realizing like we don't have to collapse under that. We don't have to live in a constant cycle of, oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to die? Yeah, one day you will. One day we all will. And we don't know how or when our day's going to be. Also, we don't have to collapse to prove that we care. Okay? Because one week we might have an opportunity to do something. We might have that opportunity to give back. And sometimes it's going to be somebody else that has that opportunity to give back. So take care of yourself. Stay compassionate. Stay aware of what's going on in the world, but also let yourself be human. I think it's important that we remind ourselves that this too shall pass. And life is meant to be lived. I think if you have an opportunity to truly live your life, to truly wake up and do something that makes you happy, to be loved, to eat a good meal, to enjoy an evening with great company, you should let yourself do it and be happy without feeling guilty about it. Because I've met people that have been through such crisis, such trauma, and I promise you, all those people so many of them just want to be happy and loved. It's all they want. It's all anybody really wants is to just be happy and loved. Because I think in life, that's all that really matters. I'm going to get back out there one day and maybe I'll do ministry again. Maybe I'll just volunteer my time to something I'm passionate about. But for now, I am going to be replenishing myself. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to ask you any questions at the end of this episode. I think the episode itself has given enough to think about. I will encourage you, though, to do one nice thing for yourself. Replenish something, some area of your life that, it's been lacking. And as always, my friends, I am so glad that you are here.